What's up, Whisper Nation? We're back in action with a 12-team PPR mock draft. Johnny Game Time Hicks and Big Travy here, the Fantasy Whispers, mocking all night long with you. So join us right here on the Fantasy Whispers.
Yes, we're back again.
Hey, let's pump up the volume.
Right here.
What's up, Whisper Nation? Big Travy here with Johnny Game Time Hicks. We are back and ready to do a 12-team PPR mock draft with you guys. Still in quarantine, still in lockdown, but something they can't take away from us is locking down a few of these mock drafts. Right, Johnny?
Yeah, so I'm really jacked for another mock draft. It has been a couple weeks since we put our last mock draft video out. This one is hopefully going to be better. Hopefully Sleeper has updated their draft board, hopefully, so we won't be getting any craziness, like Lamar Jackson in the 8th round or whatever. But all that stuff is still fun, isn't it, Travis? I still like getting that information because you never know what your draft is going to pan out to be, and you don't know what guys are going to be there. So it's just a good practice just to get in the habits of being like, hey, what guys are available? Because you never know which guys are going to slip through the cracks and who you'll be able to find. So this one will be a little bit different. I'm excited for it, Travis.
Yeah, it should be a good one. Before we get started, I think we had a post that we did on Instagram, Johnny, kind of an Easter-themed post you made. So why don't you pose that question for us now?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I just wanted to see kind of where where Whisper Nation's, thoughts were and things like that as far as what guys they might be eyeing in the draft that might have not produced last year. So, and I wanted it to be kind of Thanksgiving. I wanted it to kind of be a little bit Easter related. So I said, what fantasy football player do you think will rise again in 2020? And then I said, I'll start, and I put Juju Smith-Schuster. I think that Juju Smith is a guy that is starting to go under the radar. A lot of people aren't really talking about Juju like they certainly were last year, and we will come out with the show, post-hype sleepers, Travis, which is kind of what this is a little bit. But I want to get your thoughts as well as throw out some big names that a lot of people were talking about and see if any of those guys kind of pique your interest. A couple of them, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, you had David Johnson, you had Brandon Cooks, who newly got traded to the Houston Texans. You have, who else here? I said Todd Gurley already. Drew Brees, Will Fuller, Baker Mayfield is another one, James Conner. So what are you thinking? Who is your guy? What guy do you think will, who had a down year in 2019 will bounce back to have a big year and fantasy players will remember their name going into next year?
I know it's fun to kind of dog on the Texans based on the trades they've been doing, but I do kind of like Brandon Cooks and David Johnson this year in Houston. You saw what Carlos Hyde, a supposedly washed Carlos Hyde, was supposed to not be able to do what he did last year with Houston. We know Bill O'Brien's going to run the football. I think David Johnson stands a good chance to get a good amount of yards. And then also Brandon Cooks, if he can stay healthy, that dude can stretch the field, and Deshaun Watson can get it to those kind of receivers. So definitely those guys. Look, Baker Mayfield is one of those guys that you just you want to like a lot because of his attitude and his moxie. I think that Kevin Stefanski coming over could mean big things for Baker this year, and we could actually see him rise to that potential we were trying to peg him with last year. So those are a few of the names that I've been kind of looking at. Obviously not a rise again candidate, but we were talking a little off air about David Montgomery. I think David Montgomery is a candidate who was, we were excited about coming into last year, and then could be a guy that we could be excited about again this year based on his results.
Oh, yeah. I think that's definitely a guy that I'll be looking at in a lot of leagues simply because a lot of people were down on him. he did somewhat produce when given the opportunities, especially like down the stretch. He had some monster games. So I think that with coming into his second year into that system, and being overlooked in the fantasy community, especially at the running back position, you're going to want to take a look at guys like that, a guy like David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell, guys that sure, they might not be able to get you that top 5 production, but you're going to be getting these guys way later. They're going to be solid foundation pieces to build your roster, and then you can, turn those guys over later and potentially get the new fresh legs and things like that down the season, down the stretch. But Travis, that is not why we are here today, dude. We are here for a mock draft, man. Another one. I love these things. Can't get enough of them.
So good. We know Whisper Nation loves it. We love doing them. We love letting our imagination spin and kind of having a little bit of rivalry on air of whose team's better. So this week we're going to do a 12-team PPR mock draft. We've eliminated kicker and defense because, if Whisper Nation follows along, they know we don't draft kicker and defense in mock drafts just out of a strategy purpose. But if it makes you do it, you will have to, obviously. We've eliminated that here. So we've got 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. And once again, it's a 12-team PPR mock draft. Johnny will be drafting under the TFW emblem logo, and he will be drafting at the 1.1 spot. Myself, I will be drafting under Big Travy at the 1.6 spot. And it looks like Johnny has started the engines, so to speak, here, and now Johnny's gonna bring us off with pick 1-1. It's probably gonna be CMC, dude.
I just
click the trigger, dude.
Yeah, I was so excited to get into this that I couldn't even wait. So I will take the newly paid and highly paid, well-deserved Christian McCaffrey at the 101 spot, especially in a PPR. Love it.
So after Christian McCaffrey went to Johnny, then the computer took Saquon Barkley, followed by Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Hopkins, and now that leaves me up here, and I'm going to take Devontae Adams, second year in the Matt LaFleur system with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, healthy Devontae Adams, should be good. Then Ezekiel Elliott, Nick Chubb, followed by Julio Jones, Joe Mixon, Chris Godwin, Dalvin Cook, Tyreek Hill, Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette, Josh Jacobs, Lamar Jackson. This is a lot different than our last mock. Then Kenny Golladay comes off the board here. And that's leaving me with a decision here in the middle of the second. And I think I'm going to draft a guy I drafted last time as well in Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry's poised for a big year. He did sign his franchise tag. And so he should be set to ready to rock and roll for Tennessee. Antonio Brown came off the board without a team, but he's on the computer's team here. Mike Evans, Travis Kelce, Amari Cooper, and now Johnny back here with the back-to-back turn pick.
So if I'm looking at a wide receiver, you got Cooper Kupp available, Keenan Allen, Cortland Sutton, Adam Thielen, DJ Shark. Some of the best options right there at the running back position. You're looking at Melvin Gordon, who just newly signed with Denver. Not really sure I want to invest in that pick right there. Chris Carson, Devonta Freeman, and Miles Sanders is probably going to be my next favorite at the running back position there, Travis. I'm looking at, and you know what? I'm actually going to, at this turn, I don't often like doing this, but I'm going to take Pat Mahomes right here at the 212 turn. I just love his value there. I think that as a quarterback, there are certain areas where you can kind of get a little bit of a positional advantage. I think quarterback is one of those where if you can get guys like Lamar and Patrick, they are better than all the rest. So I'm willing to take that. And
did you say they're simply the best?
Simply
better than all the rest?
And because you got wide receiver is just so deep that I'm just going to grab my other running back here and Miles Sanders. I'll just go ahead and have Christian McCaffrey and Miles Sanders as my 2 running backs. and Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. A little bit different here than I normally kind of do, but that's what mock drafts are for. I want to see how my team turns out.
Well, and sometimes, a draft goes to you a different way than you'd normally do, and you have to adapt. And so I think that you were looking at value, and you made some decisions based on that. They're probably the wrong decisions, but that's fine. I mean, you made them. Miles Sanders goes to Johnny, then Keenan Allen, Devonta Freeman, Cortland Sutton. Not particularly in love with any of those wide receivers here, so I'm actually going to do something that I've deployed, and if you've followed us a couple years, you know what I like to call the three elites, and I'm going to go ahead and grab George Kittle here in the third round to round out three top-tier guys at each position in my first three rounds because I just wasn't in love with the wide receivers. Thought I could wait a little bit here. So after George Kittle, Le'Veon Bell, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, Adam Thielen, then Chris Carson, Kerryon Johnson, Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley. That's a guy I wanted to fall to me, but he didn't. Devin Singletary, DJ Moore, T.Y. Hilton, and DJ Shark. And now we are back on the clock here looking at what we can do. Oh, man, this seems a little risque. Getting into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I know. What's crazy about this is like I'm finding that there are still running backs last round that I would have liked to grab this round, even though it's not my pick coming up yet. But yeah,
I know we have three wide receivers. I know we have three wide receivers, and it's a PPR league. But I'm going to stack another running back here because I'm just not in love with this wide receiver pool, so maybe I can get one on the back end. I'm going to take Austin Eckler here.
Oh, that's a great pick. I was hoping I'm kind of glad that you picked him.
PPR league, I just think that, I just had to go for it here.
I'm glad that you picked him in the sense that I would have been really tempted to pick him if he had fallen to me here, and I already have two running backs.
Yeah.
So that's, definitely... Ooh.
So after I took Austin Eckler, then Deebo Samuel came off the board, followed by James Conner, Tyler Boyd, and Mark Ingram. And so now Johnny's back on the clock here at the 4-12 and the 5-1 spot, that turn.
Oh, man, I messed up big, dude. I messed up big.
By getting Mahomes?
No, I'm actually fine with the Mahomes pick. I messed up in the Miles Sanders pick. I like Miles Sanders, but looking at my board here, I've got Kenyon Drake is still available on the board, and I think that he's going to be a top 5 running back. I don't need another running back. I need a wide receiver. And if you're looking at where I'm at on the wide receivers, I've got Odell Beckham, A.J. Brown available. I've got DK Metcalf, Stephon Diggs. I've got a lot of options available that I like at the wide receiver position. I should have taken Drake in the third, and then I could have went back to back here, but
well, you got to make a pick in 20 seconds now, Johnny.
Yeah, but now it's gonna okay. So I'm going to take Odell Beckham. I still think he is elite. And there's still a few more guys that I think I can't pass on Kenyon Drake right now. He's just too valuable. You're just too valuable. Even in a PPR league where I only start 2 running backs.
So he grabs Kenyon Drake and Odell Beckham Jr. Then Deshaun Watson comes off the board, followed by Stephon Diggs, Michael Gallup, Jonathan Taylor. I think that's the first rookie off the board.
Yeah.
And now I am up here.
There's just so much there's so much value right now still. Even in the wide receiver, mostly in the wide receiver position. But like,
I am actually going to take a guy I was looking at back when I took Austin Eckler, and that was DK Metcalf.
Yeah, great pick.
Here.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm really liking how your team shaped up.
Yeah, it's not too bad. In the middle, I feel like I am able to pick off some of these runs and still get, part of what's happening here. So
Yeah.
DK Metcalf comes off the board, Zach Ertz, then David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, followed by Russell Wilson, Marlon Mack, Robert Woods, then Todd Gurley, Mark Andrews, Jarvis Landry, A.J. Brown, Phillip Lindsay, CeeDee Lamb, and I am back on the clock here. And I am going to do one of the... I think I'm going to do what Johnny was talking about at the top of the show here. A player that should rise again, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know. You were selling me at the top of the show here. Big Ben comes back. Juju, so talented. Move him all over the field. Ben's going to want to throw it in his final years. So then Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Aaron Rodgers, AJ Green. Johnny, what are you going to do?
Well, I was really hoping that Juju was going to fall and sneak to me and fall to me in the 6th. That would have just been too perfect, because then I'm going to go with Scary Terry here. I really love this pick. I like Terry McLaurin. I would have loved to go Juju and Scary Terry, and then I think the tides would have kind of turned a little bit for my team. Would have been really, really good. Let's see. I've also got Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, if you really believe in what he had done. Let me check out some of these. I've still got a lot of depth at the wide receiver position. Don't need any more running backs. That's for sure. I'm pretty set on that one. If I'm looking at tight ends, Austin Hooper, Darren Waller, Hunter Henry. I'm going to go ahead and pause or skip tight end right now. I'll probably let that fall. Oh, brother. What am I going to do? Marquis Brown.
Hey, brother.
Or This is truly going back and forth here. Do I believe in... I'm gonna go with Marquise Brown here.
I like that pick.
I'm not in love with the pick, but
I'm not in love with your team. But
yeah.
I mean, here's where we're at. You just gotta stack some picks here. So you went with Terry McLaurin, then Marquise Brown, then Darius Geis came off the board, followed by Jerry Jeudy, David Johnson, Kareem Hunt, and now your boy Travy Trav is on the clock here. And he's got to make a decision. And I think he's continuously going to go...
I already know where you're going to go on this one.
So I'm going to take Kyler Murray here in the 7th. I could have
picked every single one of your picks. I knew which one you were going to do. The last 4 rounds.
I didn't like where I'm at. I wanted to see as far as the skill position players. So I picked Kyler to kind of round out my team here. My starting lineup's looking pretty legit. We'll need to look at a flex situation here. J.K. Dobbins came after Kyler Murray, then Darren Waller, Sony Michel, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Tevin Coleman, Austin Hooper, Dak Prescott, Hunter Henry, Carson Wentz, N'Keal Harry, and Josh Allen. So it looks like I picked quarterback right where I wanted to, right where I should have. It started a mini run there. And so now I'm looking back at some of these players. And I am going to go with... I do not love these players here.
Yeah, it's
really thinning out on us.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually going to do something, and people may think this is a reach based on what they do, but I'm taking Damian Williams here. I think it's a decent flex. I think he's a receiving back. He's got the prowess in a PPR league. I think they're going to give him a shot based on what he did in the playoffs and the Super Bowl to win that job. So maybe a little bit of a reach, but I wanted to get some value there. And you're looking at Lamar Miller or James White, some of these other running backs. I'd rather take a shot at Damian Williams being the number 1 guy in Kansas City. So after I took Damian Williams, Cam Newton came off the board, Lamar Miller, James White, Devontae Parker, and now Johnny trying to salvage his team here. Trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again is Johnny Game Time.
Yeah,
Hicks.
I mean, I was not expecting the chips to fall kind of where they did. It's for sure.
Quarantine is affecting us in different ways. With Johnny,
well, I mean, my team isn't bad. It's just it could have been better if I didn't. I mean, this is the different. This is what we do. Let's see. I'm gonna go. Not in love with any of these wide receivers here. This is just horrendous.
It's bad, dude. It's gotten really bad down here. You're just like, it's the last girl at the bar now. You just gotta shoot your shot.
Dude, it is. I am struggling because I don't like any of these guys necessarily for PPR. I mean, and I really kind of backed myself into a corner here. We'll take.
I mean, there's a couple down here. I mean, they're not. It's plug your nose for
Mike
sure.
Williams.
I like that pick. That was a guy I was looking at.
You don't have to make me feel any better because that pick was not. That was not. I'm gonna go ahead and take Cam Akers too. It's a rookie pick. Don't know where he's going to land here, but Cam Akers should be a stud of a running back, and he should go within the first 2 days. So, based on that draft capital, I think that Cam Akers is actually going to be a stud. So, I'm just going to start dipping into that because this is just hideous. This is by far one of the worst mock drafts I've ever done in my life.
Cam Akers comes off the board, then Marvin Jones Jr., followed by Clyde Edwards, Julian Edelman, Noah Fant, and now I'm back on the clock here, and I'm staring at this same ugly bunch of wide receivers that Johnny was. I got my eyes on a couple people. So let me just take a look and see.
I don't know how that happened. Like, it literally went from...
It was just a cliff, a drop off.
Well, it was like
up here.
There were a couple of cliffs here. There was a cliff, in the
there's a cliff
middle of the third, right?
Yeah.
There's that cliff. And then you kind of get over that little cliff initially, and you're like, oh, okay, actually, there's like a good amount of guys here available in the 4th and the 5th round. And then, like, halfway through the 5th, it just dries up real quick.
Yeah, I'm going to take Curtis Samuel here. I think this is
like
a pretty decent shot in the 9th round. Maybe he becomes the number 1 for Teddy over in Carolina. We'll see. Sterling Shepard was another guy I was looking at. He comes off the board right after me. Ronald Jones, Tariq Cohen, John Brown, O.J. Howard, Matt Ryan, Jimmy Graham, Kirk Cousins, Matt Breida, McCole Hardman, Alshon Jeffrey, Alexander Madison, and back to me. And who do I pick? I am going to take Rashad Penny, man. I think Penny is not a guy that I love taking, but he's a guy that's got pedigree and could be a guy to emerge. He's one of those post-hype sleepers. This is definitely could have been a guy we talked about at the top. But he's definitely a guy that's got talent and could thrive in that system if given the opportunity. Royce Freeman comes off the board, then Jalen Reagor, Darrell Henderson Jr., Jimmy Garoppolo, and now Johnny back on the clock.
So,
what are you looking for?
I'm probably going to, based on, let's see, I've got 4 running backs already. I could look to get another running back. Raheem Mostert is still available. I'll probably go ahead and grab him if all else fails, just because we don't know where that's going to land. And to grab him in the 10th round, you could get a chip in where a piece where I could chip together, in order to get a better wide receiver, because my wide receivers aren't looking the best here. But I'm gonna take another shot here as far as what I think might happen in the draft and drafting a rookie and taking a rookie. And that would be, so I'll with my first pick here, I will go ahead and grab Raheem Mostert, just because if he does retain that backfield for the 49ers, he's going to be a definite valuable piece, and you could definitely trade that piece for a wide receiver later on in the season. Now, for my wide receiver dart throw here, Robbie Anderson is actually a guy that I'm starting to come around on a little bit with Carolina. It's really interesting. They needed a field stretcher, so that's why they brought in Robbie Anderson. Now, I'm not exactly certain how much Teddy Bridgewater is going to stretch the field, considering he never really has done that in his career. So it does make me a little bit nervous, which is why I'm going to pivot here. So they're Justin.
You built him up so much, and then just said nope, no, and that's why I'm going away from him.
So I like Justin Jefferson could actually be a guy that if he goes to Philadelphia and fills that number one role, Justin Jefferson looks like he could be an absolute stud. So I might start looking around here if I knew that he was going to Philadelphia. But since I don't know that for sure, I'm going to end up settling here on Emmanuel Sanders. Just went with the Saints. And I finally stole a pick from Travis.
Dang. I wanted him. He was just lurking down there. Sanders is a great pick.
I'll trade you Emmanuel Sanders for Juju.
No, definitely not. So Sammy Watkins comes off after Emmanuel Sanders, which could have been a decent one as well in the 11th. Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield, then Latavius Murray, and I'm back on the clock here. And honestly, a little bit razzled here because Johnny took a guy I wanted to take here.
See, Travis, this is where you really make your fantasy roster. The big splash guys are, that's easy stuff. But it's here and,
How's that?
And the dirt that you have to find the gems in order to really be good at drafting, all right?
Yeah.
So who you going to grab here? It's 11th round. We've got, 3 more rounds. You have 2 more picks after this one. So let's make it count. What are you thinking here? Where's your head at?
This is a little bit of a kind of a dart throw, but that's where we're at with this.
That's where you've been the last 5 picks. Have been all dart throws.
I don't think that's true, but I'm going to take Darius Slayton here. I like Slayton. I liked his connection with Danny Dimes, and I think that he's got a good shot to be a number 1 guy there in New York. So Dallas Goedert comes off after that. Robbie Anderson, Johnny's boy, who he just had to go away from. Really wish you would have drafted him. D.D. Westbrook then comes off the board after him, followed by David Njoku, Justice Hill, friend of the show, Jamal Williams, Golden Tate, Henry Ruggs III, Deontay Johnson, Delaney Walker, Duke Johnson, and Justin Jefferson. I feel like Johnny's talked about every single player that he hasn't drafted. So here we go. All right, so I'm back up, and I've got plenty of wide receivers. So I'm going to look at a running back here, kind of take a peek at what I can get away with. Not a lot here in the cupboard. Oh, well, this is a good one. Just sitting here, down here is the now starting running back, at least for right now, on the Los Angeles Rams, Malcolm Brown. So
do you think that he's going to be the starting running back?
Listen, I think we've talked about this multiple times. We talked about it a lot last year. I love Darrell Henderson. I'm a big fan of Darrell Henderson. I was a big fan coming out of college last year. I think he could easily come in and flash that juice that he's got and take over the job. But we know that Malcolm Brown showed up and did what they asked him to do when they needed him to in those little stints. And so I think he could be a guy that shows up for the Rams there. Denzel Mims. Jared Cook, then Paris Campbell, followed by Zach Moss, and now Johnny back on the clock for his final 2 picks to really put the cherry on top of his proverbial Sunday.
So I'm gonna turn this around a little bit here. I'm like what I'm, my last few picks, I've really turned it around, and I'm not gonna do any different
really.
here. Tyler
okay.
Higbee. I'm gonna go ahead and take Tyler Higbee, tight end, for the Rams. They just lost out on Brandon Cooks. All those targets now, and you already saw somewhat of a breakout season from Higbee. So let's also remember, this was I originally forgot about this, Travis, but Higbee was actually the very first draft pick that was ever selected by the Rams head coach. And so I think what we know based on what he likes to do in his offenses, he actually does like to use the tight end. And I remember making a note right when it had happened. I was like, just remember this name because Sean McVay likes to use tight ends in his systems, and it's just kind of fun to see that now coming through and him actually using that. So you like what you see there. Apparently you weren't as enthusiastic about that story as I was, but
hey man, well, I mean, whatever you need to make you sleep better at night with Tyler Higbee, I mean, just go for it.
All right, so I am going to draft another.
Whisper Nation, that seemed like a situation where Johnny just kind of forgot about tight end until round 12. He goes, I need to take tight end. I'm gonna make this elaborate story about Tyler Higbee.
I knew
that
exactly
dude. That's a master at work, dude. A master salesman at work over there, just selling you all.
Where I was going the whole time.
Anthony, yeah. So Anthony Miller was his follow-up pick. I like that pick. Miller's got some potential, especially with Nick Foles coming to town. Mike Gesicki,
third year,
Dante Moncrief, Joe Burrow, Daniel Jones, and now I'm up for my Mr. Insignificant pick here.
I must say your last 6 picks have been kind of insignificant picks.
Are you kidding me?
You got to really turn this around.
Running back?
You might have lost this battle just in the last 6 picks alone. Look at what I'm dealing with over here.
Yeah, you got one guy. He doesn't even play for a team yet.
Who is that?
And you got another Cam Akers, dude. He's not even on a team, dude.
He's gonna be a beast, dude.
I'm taking a look here. They just don't have a bunch of these.
No, you're right.
Good ones.
Wide receivers are out.
I mean, luckily, my team's pretty stacked at the top, so
doesn't have to get you got a pretty good team, I must say. I definitely would not advise.
You know what? I'm just gonna go with Larry. Just pick Larry here in the 13th.
Right. That's not bad. I like that.
I think it could be worse.
He's had several, 100 catch
PPR,
seasons.
I think he's got a shot to fill in on bye weeks for me when I need him to.
Yeah.
So followed by Larry Fitzgerald with Sam Darnold, Corey Davis, Tony Pollard, Drew Brees, Tyrell Williams, and Jordan Howard rounds out our 12-team PPR mock draft. Johnny, why don't you walk us through your team?
So Whisper Nation, I took the number 1 pick. Usually don't ever take this. So it was very, very interesting to get this pick. So I went with a different strategy, and it definitely showed. So with the number 1 pick, you got to take Christian McCaffrey. I fully endorse this pick. I would still make this pick. Christian McCaffrey, to me, he is the best fantasy player, and I think he'll be the number 1 fantasy player next year. At number 2, took Patrick Mahomes. I love Patrick Mahomes. I love his value even in the second round. Again, I have no concerns about me taking Patrick Mahomes in the second. I'm still comfortable with doing that. This is where the wheels kind of came off a little bit. Miles Sanders in the third round. Now, traditionally, I would say Miles Sanders in the third round is not a bad take. Definitely not. But considering what was still left on the board and what was still available in later rounds, taking him there was not the right pick. I should have went with a wide receiver. Hindsight is 2020. Anyway, I went with Miles Sanders to pair with Christian McCaffrey. In the 4th came around Odell Beckham. I got lucky with this pick here. And I also noticed at that point, Kenyon Drake was still on the board, which I by far like more than Miles Sanders this next year. So getting Kenyon Drake in the 5th is an absolute steal. But again, I wasn't able to capitalize to the full extent because I took Miles Sanders in the 3rd. In the 6th, Terry McLaurin, love him. I think that he's going to get even better in the 2nd year. I really, really like Terry McLaurin. I like his career outlook as well. I followed that up by Marquis Brown, another guy that I think will take another step, and I think that we just saw the surface of what he can truly do in the NFL. Again, though, these are more dart throws as opposed to sure things, which is why I'm not so in love with this draft. Mike Williams is who I took in the 8th. We'll see how he does with Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor does like big body wide receivers, so Mike Williams should have a decent season and outlook. I do like him, but as far as his ceiling, I don't know if it's as good as what we thought and what we wanted with Phillip Rivers behind the helm. Cam Akers is the running back I took in the 9th, rookie running back. We're not sure where he's going to land, but he is projected to be a top 5 dynasty pick at the running back position. Really like him no matter where he goes. Raheem Mostert, again, another running back. I know I probably don't need this many for a PPR league, but sometimes you just see value where value is, and you just take the best player available, and Raheem was that guy. Emmanuel Sanders in the 11th. I need to start drafting wide receivers because I was low in them. Emmanuel Sanders, like his outcome, should get a lot of targets. Tyler Higbee, again, at the tight end position. If I don't get, one of the top 3 tight ends, I'm going to punt the position. Tyler Higbee is a good one to have, and Anthony Miller's who I took to round out my draft. So overall, not too bad on my end, Travis. I salvaged a few pieces here, but your team is definitely, I can already say I will concede the victory here, but I do want to go over your team, how you feel about drafting in that 6th position overall.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a wait and see approach in the middle. I took Devontae Adams at 1-6, then I took Derrick Henry, followed by George Kittle. I wanted to round out 3 top tier players at each position, make sure I could get that, and then it was more or less waiting and seeing where I could wait on a position and maybe grab a guy of value. And I thought I did a good job, probably down until I'd say maybe round 8. So I took George Kittle in round 3, then Austin Eckler in round 4. Really love that pick. DK Metcalf was a guy I was looking at in the round before, actually even over when I took George Kittle. And so if you're looking at Metcalf there and you can get him 2 rounds later, you got to love that. He should be coming into his own, and more rapport with Russell Wilson is on the way, so that's exciting. You got Juju Smith-Schuster. Johnny and I talked about it at the top of the show as a post-type sleeper or as a guy to bounce back this year. Not really a post-type sleeper because he's been a top 5 wide receiver already. Kyler Murray, I got in the 7th year, maybe a little early in some drafts, but I noticed that it did kind of start a mini quarterback run, so I'm glad I got him in the 7th when I did. He's got DeAndre Hopkins this year, could be the QB1 overall, and nobody would even bat an eye if that. Damian Williams here in the 8th. Like this pick a lot. I know that there's a lot of talk about Kansas City and all these other running backs, but Damian Williams seems to be the guy that keeps poking his head back around each time and doing what he needs to do for this team. Then Curtis Samuel, Rashad Penny, Darius Slayton, all these guys are just kind of dart throws. They need some help for things to go their way, but they're the 9th, 10th, and 11th round. They're not my starters at this point. Then we're looking at Malcolm Brown here, who on paper is a starting running back for the Rams. We know that he should be involved in the running game with Todd Gurley off to Atlanta. And then finally, Larry Legend, could be his final year, and he is a PPR monster, and so why not put him on your roster for 2020? So that was my team. Johnny, yeah, I would say that I think, not just because I always think I have the better team, but I definitely think I have the better team here. I think that maybe we saw when you do have 3 wide receivers, a good point for Whisper Nation here, you may need to go a little bit earlier on wide receiver, especially if you're on one of the ends, because it's going to be a long wait until you get back into that pool. And so as you saw what Johnny did here, even with Miles Sanders, had Johnny waited with Miles Sanders and gone wide receiver here, he may have been a little bit better off. I think he did a good job, like you said. I think he did a good job of salvaging it. I really love the Raheem Mostert pick, the Emmanuel Sanders picks. those are some of your later picks that I did enjoy, and I do think they help round out the team. But at the end of the day, your team sucks, mine's the best, and that's just where we're at. So,
well, thank you so much, Whisper Nation, for joining this mock draft. Please hit that thumbs up, and please subscribe to our channel if you love our content and you want more fantasy football content. Please make sure you like and hit that bell so you get notified anytime we put out new content. As always, take it easy. Good luck mock drafting. Continue to mock draft. You learn so much each and every single time you do it. Until next time, that is Big Travy. I'm Johnny Game Time Hicks, and we're the Fantasy Whisperers, and we're out. Peace.
Peace. Stay home. Stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.